I'm now going to introduce our first speaker for the conference, Geoff Neumayr. Geoff is an Associate Deputy Director for the San Francisco International Airport Design, Construction, and Technology Department. He is responsible for planning, design, and construction of all the airport's major capital projects. He has overseen many of the recent projects at the airport, including the Airport BART Station, the Rental Car Center, and the new Terminal 2 project. And he's a strong advocate for partnering. He's been at all our meetings whenever we are trying to work through issues. He's there sharing his experiences. Please welcome Geoff Neumayr.
Wow, this is awesome. This is actually a very historical day. I think we are the first major city really to embrace a new way of doing business, and this is absolutely incredible. We thank everybody for being here. So why a better way? Well, we need to attract the best firms to do the best projects in the world. And San Francisco does build the best projects in the world. It started, I think, back to the Golden Gate Bridge, I think to our awesome convention center, to the engineering marvel of the world, our water system and Hetchy program, and our airport, which we tend to think is on its way to becoming the best airport in the world. But we need your help, and we need the best firms. And so we know you have choices, and we want to be the agency of choice. We have the projects, as the mayor said, we have the trust of $25 billion. So we want you to be part of our team, and we want your best people. But how do we get there? What we want to do is integrate as one team through a structured, integrated organization. What I mean by that is it's not enough just to have the designer and the builder or constructors integrated. And it isn't even just enough just to have our project managers in the city and the builders and the designers integrated, but we have to integrate with our stakeholders as well. It's really important because ultimately, as the mayor said, it's not just enough to be on time and on budget, but it's also about making sure that our stakeholders like what we do in the end, because at the end of the day, that's where we're being judged. And last, we need to work collaboratively together as a team. And this is where we bring the structured collaboration partnering program together that we're introducing today. Now, partnering, there's some misconceptions about it. You know, it is not a kumbaya session. It is not about barbecues. It is not about friendships. Those are things that happen as a result of hard work. And partnering is all about hard work. It's about getting into the core issues and what you've got and dealing with them and making commitments to each other and focusing around a common purpose that we all agree to and that we drive for. So it's extremely important that we understand that. We heard a story at one of our partnering sessions yesterday that I thought was just fantastic, and we had an opening at our boarding area E project, and United Airlines brought in a 787, and the storyline was that they let in everybody, and the first people that ran to the plane was the project team. It was everybody, and they ran over there, and we walked in, and I got there kind of a little bit late, and Jim acknowledged that the whole entire team were all laid out in the first class lounge, all just having a great old time. It was fantastic to see that, but you know, they weren't there for that. It was a result of hard work and exceptionalism, and that's what they were celebrating. You know, at the end of the Super Bowl, I guarantee there's no party going on in the losing locker room. The party's going on in the winning locker room, and the win was that they exceeded their expectations and reached those exceptional project goals. So, what are those exceptional project outcomes that we're looking for? Because this really becomes the fundamental base of what partnering is all about. It's about seeking common purpose that we're all working towards. An exceptional project outcome, as we commonly refer to it around here, is really, exceptionalism is deviating from the norm. It's doing something different. It doesn't mean doing the same old thing. It means doing extraordinary things. A project, which we're pretty familiar with, is taking on a large major undertaking involving a considerable amount of money, $25 billion in this case, using the resources and equipment and our talents and making something happen. But the last part of this is an outcome. And it's really important that we understand what an outcome is. An outcome isn't just something that is subjective or a feeling or something, but it's something we can actually measure. And why is that so important that we have measurement? Is that through partnering is what we're going to measure continually as we go through the entire process. And today you're going to hear a lot about that as we go through this. and how we measure those outcomes, and we track against those things. If you can't measure it, you can't fix it. You got to know how you're doing and measure each step of the way, and it's against those commitments we make. So what do those exceptional project outcomes potentially look like? Well, one of the big things for us is, and the mayor touched on it, is the involvement of our community. This is an investment in our community, and it's involving our local businesses. That is something that's extremely important, increasing our LBE goals, making sure that we're involving our small businesses here within the city. It also means training people to replace us, because this is going to go on for 10 years. We've got to bring new people into what we're doing. It's also about those economic goals that we need to make, making those commitments to each other that we're going to deliver projects on time and on budget, but be exceptional so that the people who finance our projects do look at us and say, hey, we trust those guys. They can really do it. And this is where we need everybody's help, because it isn't just about the city's project managers or ourselves, but it's about all of us in this room that have to make that happen. It's about our sustainability goals. It's about being resilient, recognizing the fact that we live in a city that is going to have an earthquake someday, and we can't just deny it and say it's not going to happen, because really it's going to happen, and guess what? We're going to be expected to bounce back the next day and be in operation. So it's recognizing that we're ready for those types of things. Yes, it does mean that we have the typical project management outcomes, which is on schedule and on budget, and yes, those are there, but there's much, much more to it. It's also about design outcomes. This is a city of creativity and innovation, and the rest of the world looks at us. So let's go out there and do something different. Let's do things special. Let's build great facilities and infrastructure and be the leaders of the world. It's expected of us, and people are looking at us, and this is innovative, what we're doing today, and we're sitting here. It is construction outcomes, primarily that everybody goes home at night. It's extremely important. It isn't worth doing for anybody to get hurt. And so that focus is extremely important. And it's also important that people make a fair dollar and they make their money and have a purpose for doing business with the city. And that goes back to the idea that we want to be that agency of choice. Oops, jumped here, looked the gun a little bit. And so why New Way? Well, the city and county really wants a commitment to develop world-class facilities. We want to deliver those exceptional project outcomes. We need to develop programs that meet all our stakeholder requirements. We want to become the agency of choice. We need to attract the best in the business. We also want to create an environment of collaboration and innovation. We want to develop a partnered approach to issue resolution and problem solving. As we say, it's not about waiting to the end and then taking it up in court to solve all the problems, but let's try to do it as we go. We want to promote creativity and innovation. And yes, we do want to have fun. None of us got into this business to really just make a lot of money, because we're not making a whole lot of money doing this. We got into this because we love it as architects, builders, project managers. We got into this because we love what we do. So let's go for it and have fun and do it and make it and care about each other and do great things. So, you know, the video was kind of funny. I'm going to kind of, what I'm about to lay out here is kind of a little bit funny too as well. These are really perceptions, and I'm going to kind of go through these, and you're probably going to chuckle a little bit, but ask yourself, is this really what you've thought before? And really what this is our fears of each other. And what's interesting about these fears that I'm going to talk about is that these are what we have built all our commercial terms around, the way we do businesses, the way we think about each other, all our processes and everything, but these really aren't the real issues. And really, how many times, as an owner, do we say the designer will only be content with the art in his own ego, be over budget, and maybe never put in what's really needed and miss all the program elements? And the builder will never do what we want, pursue change orders and additional costs, never finish on time, and cut corners to save money. Okay, designers, now you step up. Well, the builder will always be deviating from the plan, ask way too many RFIs, and will never be. And the contractor will never do what they were told to do on the drawings. Of course, the owner will never make a decision, keep changing the design, blame the design for every single change order that's out there, and always want additional design services for free. Now the builder. So the builder always thinks the owner will never be satisfied with the quality of the work. The owner will never pay for any of those changes. I kind of saw that in the video. And the owner will never acknowledge the schedule delays. Of course, the designer will always provide incomplete, unconstructible documents. claim that the drawings are always perfect and understandable, and the designer will always tell the contractor about all the things that they missed in their bid. Okay. But in reality, these are not the risks on a project, and these are not the things we should be focused on. There's really three things. The first one is the vision risk. This is the responsibility of the city. And this is our sharing of the vision of what we want with the rest of the project team. We cannot transfer that. We cannot share that. We can be part of a team and align it with the designers and the builders. And those things are the budget expectations, the funding expectations, schedule, the scope, and the project outcome and expectations. We need to share this with the team. The next risk that we have on a job is the design risk. And it's the designer that owns that risk, to develop a set of drawings and specifications that match that vision of the owner. And last time I checked with the designers, they're willing to accept this risk. They don't want to share it. They want to take it on. That's what they love to do. And of course, builders love to build. And they don't want to share that as well. They're willing to take it on. So if everybody loves doing these things and wants these things, let's not talk about sharing, but let's talk about alignment of these things. And let's talk to each other about these things. Risk will always stay with the responsible organization that has to accept that risk. You can't transfer it, you can't share it. We need to focus on aligning all our expectations and not assigning those risks. So how do we do this? So one of the ways is we start is with communications. And we always start with, back up here, got a little fast here. We kind of send a core team communications. This is where we bring together. We kind of work in our hierarchies. And our hierarchies typically are our stakeholders work with the owner. And of course the builder just works with their subcontractors, and the designer just works with their subconsultants. But nobody ever talks to each other. And so there's these three kind of groups in the room that kind of fight it out and duke it out and don't ever align expectations. But if we really want to talk about partnering, where you bring a truly integrated team and everybody together, your communications look more like this. And we call that success. And we call that integration. And that just looks like absolute chaos. But actually, in all that chaos is where all the solutions lie. So what is collaboration all about? Well, it really starts with that exceptional project outcome, those set of common purposes that we're focused on. And collaboration really is that communication between two people that are focused on the same common purpose to get there, and that they work it out together. And that's what we want to encourage no matter who they're talking to on the project team. Problem is that we have one more step in all this, because we have this cross-communication, and everybody's working towards the same common purpose, because that's what partnering is all about, is that we now have to integrate. And I have a little bit different definition of what integration is. A lot of people talk about technology and 3D modeling and those types of things, but I like to sum up integration as really the transparent outcome of all those individual conversations that go on that the entire project team can share in to work themselves towards that same common purpose. And in partnering, if you notice when partnering workshops occur, for those of you who've been at it, the entire project team is there. So it really is about that outward sharing. So collaboration, one-on-one communication, integration is the outward sharing of that conversation. So what are the parts of a high-performing team? So a high-performing team starts with a city with high expectations. You know, if we just wanted to do just the norm, that's pretty easy. But that's not what the city, county of San Francisco wants. We want to be different. We want to be the leader. And so it does start with a great project management team. And we do have some of the best project managers in the world. But we need you, and we need this integrated design and build team, and that's where all of you fit in. And we bring you through that process. And we usually kind of get stuck right here. We stop right here. And we do this through the low bid process, and then we go to war. Well, let's up the game and talk about integrating together and communicating with each other and talking with each other and start working through those issues. Let's take advantage of this exceptionalism that we have together. And we do this through the glue that holds us all together, which is the partnering program. This is where we actually work within the confines of a team game and a common purpose. So what is partnering? Partnering is a structured process which two or more organizations come together to work as one team. So the project team, the owner, the builder, and the designer come together by committing to teamwork, communication, trust, transparency, respect, and fairness. To create, to collaborate in an environment that sets goals and objectives to produce an exceptional project outcome. That's it. That's what partnering is all about. It's not about barbecues. It's not about kumbaya sessions. It's not about anything. That's hard stuff to do. So I want to talk a little bit about the hierarchy. I think it's important to talk about this a little bit, that we are kind of moving from step 1 to step 5, and I kind of want to talk about where we're at today in this hierarchy as a city. And the first step is that we as departments within the city and county get along, and we start talking to each other, and we start sharing ideas. We have spent the last year working really hard to develop a partnering specification that'll work across all departments within the city. And it has happened, and everybody is really excited about all this. And that was the first step, is that there's this buy-in that occurs from starting at the mayor's level all the way down through all our department heads, through all of us that are responsible for the design and construction within the city of all these projects. And I promise you that has happened. Step 2 is where we begin to share that with our community that's out there. That's you, and that's why we're here today. And we are at step 2. And that's the purpose of today, is to share with you our vision as a city, as a unified city, sharing with you that we are committed to doing this. Step 3 is the facilitated process, the structured process of partnering. And that's what the specifications is all about. And you're going to hear some stories today from panel members who have actually implemented some 2 projects. And you're going to hear more about how the specification does get implemented. But this is the next step that we're moving towards. Step 4 is where things just naturally start to occur on an everyday model that we walk through. So we have our formal processes that we go through. But the next one is that it happens in the morning around a cup of coffee, where people are actually solving problems together. And ultimately, the highest level where we want to go is, it's just the way we act. It's the way we just go about doing our everyday lives when we're on the project site. So what does a partnering organization structure look like? And we'll talk more about this, and Edgar and Laura will talk more about the organization. But it really starts with an executive committee or executive sponsor, and that really is a commitment from the top down. That is where the C-level leaders of organizations, the builders, the designers, our project management teams, as well as from the city, support the core team. They set the vision, they coach, they mentor, they listen. The next level down is the actual core team. Who's the core team? The core team is the actual people who do the jobs, from the builder, from the designer, from the city and county of San Francisco. These are the people that are in the trenches. Like I say, these are the people that are actually playing the football game at the stadium. The owners are up in the booths. That's kind of where the executive committee is. But these are the people that are down in the field and playing the game. And what their job really is to do is actually to support the stakeholders. And the stakeholders are those people that are not directly involved in the project, but the people that are actually ultimately going to measure our success at the end. Those are end users, those maintainers, the fire department, our building department. It's all these other people. It's our public. It's the people, our tenants, the people that are going to use our facilities after. And that's what the core group is really supporting. Yeah. And of course, if we fulfill all the ideas of our stakeholders, we can get to an exceptional project outcome. So what are those partnering elements? And I'm just going to glance through this at a very high level, and then Edgar and Laura will talk a little more about the specifics of partnering. And partnering starts initially with a planning workshop. And a planning workshop usually occurs prior to any designers being selected by the city or any of the builders selected. And really the primary purpose of planning is just to establish what that partnering plan is going to look like. Everything's got to be scalable because not every project is the same. They all have different sizes and complexities and people involved. And we will talk more about the scalability of the specifications and how we can work that up and down given what we have to deal with on that particular project. But it really starts the legwork of what's going to happen. But initially we bring we bring our team together through a bid process or a selection and qualification-based selection. It really doesn't matter. But we have a kickoff workshop, and this kickoff workshop really is about where we co-create together the exceptional project outcomes. It isn't just the city, it's not just the builder, and it's not just the designer, and it's not just the stakeholders, but it's everybody. That we look at a holistic set of goals that we are going to work towards and commit to. The next step is the ongoing facilitated workshops that we do. And there's 3 types of workshops. And the number and frequency of these workshops will be figured out during the original planning phases. And there's really 3 levels of workshops that occur. One is executive, one is core group, one is stakeholder. Kind of walk through each one of those, and what happens is that the executive committee meets on some regular basis to kind of just overview and see how things are going so that they can kind of address the core group and offer guidance and vision. But what's more important is the ongoing core workshops that occur. These are the more regular ones that we're more familiar with. And this is where the team really gets together and really openly talks about the issues that are getting in their way of trying to get to their exceptional project outcome. And they make commitments to each other. Those are promises to each other to do that. The third category is an actual stakeholder workshop. This is a little bit different than a core workshop, because what happens when you engage the stakeholders is the core group doesn't really get to raise the issues at this point in time. The stakeholders do, but the core group still makes the commitments back to the stakeholders. So you begin to see what's going on here now is that we're getting this complete 360-degree integration of the team through all these different processes. The next big part of partnering is metrics, measurement, and maintenance. Maintenance is the ongoing workshop, but we'll talk a little more about the metrics and measurements. Of course, the metrics we've talked about, which is the exceptional project outcomes, but the measurement is extremely important. And we do that via scorecards. And again, we'll talk a little more at length about the scorecards and why we do those things here in a second. And of course, the last part of partnering is our closeout workshop. And this is where we come together after we've succeeded and done great things, and we discuss what worked, what didn't work. And the purpose of this is because once we complete a project, somewhere, someplace, we will all come back together and we'll be working together on future projects here in the city, county, and San Francisco. I ran into a friend of mine, Pat Jennings, are you here? Who we haven't worked together in 15 years. And we worked together way back in the day, back on the BART station at the San Francisco National Airport. We do all come together in a different place at a different time. And so here we share with each other how we can promote our industry and what we do and make things better for the city as we move forward, because we are going to continue to learn. We're going to continue to innovate and continue to be creative. It's not just enough just to complete and walk away. Let's get ready for the next assignment. So what gets measured does improve. So what should we measure? Well, it's pretty simple. Let's measure our outcomes, those exceptional project outcomes. And those different various outcomes are, what's our vision? What are those key project goals that we established way back in the kickoff session? What are those key issues and commitments we've made during the various workshops? How are we tracking against those? And how are we doing against our project outcome goals? And basically what we're going to do is we're going to measure from a scale of 1 to 5 how we're doing, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. I guess who gets to do the measurement? Everybody on the project team. And they get a scorecard. And they're going to go through these things one by one. So what do those scorecards look like? Like a scorecard. And there they are. Everything listed in an orderly fashion, and you just pick and choose 1 through 5. Many times these scorecards are done through a web-based application that goes out via an email to everybody on the project team. Everybody gets to fill them out. Typically, they don't take more than 5 to 10 minutes to fill out, but they're very powerful. They're very extremely powerful. So what happens after the scorecard is all completed? We get a scorecard, and the scorecard goes out to each member of the project team. And in the scorecard, we actually get to see what our average scores are. And you know, one of the things that's really cool about this score is that there's an average score that you get. And when partnering is really working, do you know what the biggest interest of any successful partnering team is? Not that you're on budget or what the daily problem is. What's your average partnering score? That's cool when that happens. Because you can see what's happening here is that in order to get to that higher level, you're more focused on each other and not on your individual agendas and things you've got to do. So it's a very powerful thing here. The other thing here too is that it allows you to see what might be going wrong. So that at a workshop, we can bring it up. And it creates this atmosphere for people to say, hey, this is why it's not working. Come back together, make commitments to each other, and pursue that with vengeance to raise that score up. And then we can track and see how we do it on the next month. Last, I want to finish a little bit about leadership. And partnering is about leadership. One of the things that we are trying to do with partnering is empower people at the right levels. Some might say the lowest levels. But I like to say the people that are doing the project, the core group. It shouldn't be up at the department heads level. Those things should only be when those events need to occur, but we need to empower people. And so what's going to happen is if we're going to set up a resolution ladder for people to resolve things and set up that comfort zone of how they can raise things, and Amy touched on it, that we create this, allow that resolution ladder of things as they rise to rise up, and we put time frames and all such things. That's great. But we also need to recognize that the people that are doing it are leaders. So everybody in this room is going to be a leader. And we need to re-talk about what leadership is all about within the organization and how we go about doing business. But before we talk about the leadership styles, let's talk about what leadership is. And all project team members will have to be leaders. But leaders have followers. Pretty obvious, right? Except there's one little trick to all this. Following is voluntary. That takes a different strategy now. So what is a leader? A leader is the ability to guide and motivate a group of people to a common purpose. Back to the exceptional project outcome. Those could be a meeting between an inspector and a laborer out in the field. That requires leadership. Somebody's leading that conversation. But it's always directed at a common purpose. So let's talk about leadership styles. We've traditionally grown up understanding a dictatorial type leadership versus a trusted leader. And a trusted leader is what partnering is all about. And this is where we need to grow to. If we look at leadership characteristics, let's walk through a typical hierarchy type, dictatorial type leader. And I'll go through this pretty quick. But if we have low trust of our people, and we think that they're not very good, then what we'll do then is we'll begin to threaten people to get what we want. And if they don't do what they want, then we'll punish them. And then they become afraid. And then all they do is conform and do exactly what you want them to do. And then if you ask for any ideas to solve any problems, you get a single solution, which is probably the solution that you've done wrong for the last 500 times. There's absolutely no learning going on. Nobody grows. Everybody becomes an extremely low performer, and ultimately failure kicks in. But let's balance that against a leader who has a tremendous amount of trust in the team that they're working with. Then they can now begin to collaborate with that person, begin to openly discuss issues from the heart, and really get into what's really the issues. What happens then is that when we come up with a positive solution, you begin to reward each other. Now the barbecues start to set in. So this is a result of what's happening through partnering. It's not the other way around. People actually begin to have fun. Then people are willing to become innovative. And then you begin to get multiple solutions that you get to pick from, this kind of outside of the box thinking. And now you begin to become incredibly creative. Coaching and mentoring sets in where we begin to help each other. We get better at what we do. We get better for the next project. We help young people into our business so that they can come in and replace us as we all retire. There's a tremendous amount of professional growth that begins to occur. Everybody now becomes a high performer because there's no longer any fear here anymore. And now you're not afraid necessarily when an issue comes up to go through the resolution ladder and bring it up. And ultimately what you get out of this is excellence. Because everybody now is working together to one common purpose instead of against each other. And this is exactly what partnering is all about. So I will leave you with this at the end, is that really partnering in a weird kind of way is, yes, a leadership program. It is about us. And it's about you, and it's about us as a city. And we're going to come together as partners, and over the next 10 years, we're going to do really, really great things. And we're going to show the rest of the world how it's done right. Thank you.
So as you saw from the pyramid, we're just at level 2, but it is And we got really a culture that we are going to have to change. And it's going to take all of us. It can't be just one side of the city or one side of the contracting community. We're going to have to work together to really achieve the vision that's been laid out here. And we definitely have our commitment from the city. So thank you for the presentation.